Welcome to Ask Lift Logic, the video series where we're answering your questions. I'm Todd Smith and I'll be your host. Throughout this video series, we're going to cover things that we're experts in. So SEO, web design, web development, PPC, social media, photography, and videography. That's why we wanted to start Ask Lift Logic, to help serve out content to people who aren't just our clients. Because the more you guys know, the better decisions you can make. Welcome to Ask Lift Logic. Today, we're talking about social media. I'm being joined by Courtney and Becca. Courtney's our residential PPC social media expert, and Becca does all things content. So I knew they would be the two best people internally to talk with us about social media. Do you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hey guys, I'm Courtney. I've been around Lifted Logic since 2014, off and on. I hired Mr. Todd over here.
Yeah.
Going back to the beginning. However, most of my social media experience doesn't really come from Lifted Logic, I guess. It comes from, I moved to New York in the middle of my Lifted Logic stint. There I worked in fashion, PR, and marketing, and worked directly for like a single brand that had multiple stores, retail stores in New York and Beverly Hills. I took the first account, the New York account, from about 10,000 followers to now they have about 150,000.
Humble brag.
Yeah.
I know.
Casual,
Love it.
casual.
I know. When they left, there was about 100,000 when I left. So it's just blowing up and growing, and it's super exciting to still see like your baby growing up. LA started that account from nothing, and now they have 20,000+ followers as well. So I guess you could say, and I never used any money. Like nothing was ever like paid, boosted. We didn't do any ads. So it was really just organic business, social media experience. And we could see direct, results of the work. Lines were longer. People were more interested. People would come in holding their phone, being like, I saw this, where can I get it?
That's cool.
So that's my favorite thing. And then here I help run social media, the advertising side, which I guess gave me that kind of filled in that gap of my social media experience. And now we're running all kinds of ads for Facebook, Instagram.
TikTok's next, man, I'm telling you.
TikTok. Don't get me started on TikTok.
Yeah.
Miss Becca?
So I'm Becca. I'm the content strategist. I, on top of kind of helping clients facilitate new website builds, I also kind of have started piloting our ongoing department, including social media, both organic and paid strategies for that. But like Courtney, I also didn't get all my social media knowledge from Lifted Logic. I came into the agency with past experience. My last job was actually for a social media agency. It was kind of a hybrid kind of workflow where we did work for a single brand, but we worked for a franchise. So every individual business owner had the buying power to hire whatever marketing agency they wanted. And we were able to kind of make decisions on a micro level for that specific location and figure out kind of like what works best for them, both organic and paid strategies.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you guys know a little bit about social media is what
A
you're
little bit.
saying.
Yeah.
A little bit too much. Maybe we know too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I firmly believe you can know too much about social media.
Yeah.
I guess, I think at this point, social media is pretty common. Like, I don't even necessarily think we need to go into what social media is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the first question I get from the project management operation side is, does social media work?
Does it work? Yes, it works, but you have to know what you want it to work for and have kind of realistic expectations of what social media does.
What does that mean?
So social media is more of like let me show my brand to the world and show what we do and who we are and give you kind of a personality. If you're expecting social media to like lead to direct sales, I'm sorry to tell you, but like you're probably going into it you're going to be disappointed.
It can, depending on the business, but it's most people that are really serious about social media marketing, it's more brand awareness than it is direct lead gen.
Yes, unless you want to pay like a Kardashian or a Jenner like $1 million.
Or Todd.
Or, Todd is an influencer himself.
I'm a lot cheaper than Kim Kardashian.
You are a lot cheaper,
Yeah.
but 160 million followers.
I'm working on it,
One day. So unless you want to pay one of them a lot of money, it's definitely more of a culture brand, getting, just your everyday, everything from like, let's show you behind the scenes to let's talk about, a really good customer story we have, promoting events, just getting yourself out there.
Yeah, I would say like on top of brand awareness, social media can also be a really good tool to help with your SEO. Just from a technical standpoint, like the more links you get back to your site, the better. And social media does count. It might not have the same weight as if you were getting a link from like WebMD or like an authoritative website, but definitely posting links to your website on social media can help garner more organic traffic. And especially if you're putting out regular content like blogs, the more you post on social, the more people will feel like you're putting out new content and see you as that authority. And so it kind of like is building that brand awareness and your link profile in the same time.
Yeah, does one link from a social media, so a platform like Facebook, if I post a blog and I link it back and then I post another one, is that 2 links or is that 1 link?
If you're linking to 2 different pages,
Yeah.
it's 2 different links.
Nice. So it's a really good way to get like multiple backlinks to your site.
Yes.
And drive people there.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
For sure.
Another question that I get a lot is, and we kind of talked about it, does social media affect SEO? And then maybe it sounds like it's not necessarily a direct effect, but it's going to boost you in the way that you're driving people to the site and like helping with backlinks.
Yeah, it's always good to like drive users back to your site whenever possible because again, we know they're not going to convert from social media or a newsletter or something like that, but we know we can convert them on the site. So driving them back to that for a way to like reach out to you is good. It's also good for basically like creating let's see, I'm trying to figure out how to word this.
If I know what you're trying to say, I would help you.
I know.
But,
I think I kind of lost it.
I
It's
kind of
okay.
have a question for you in the meantime. Like,
Go ahead.
so if it affects SEO, how much does using like appropriate keywords, key phrases, things like that also affect SEO? Like, is it
Doesn't
enough
matter.
to just post the link, or do you also need to like have some of those signal phrases?
I typically like using key phrases when possible on social, but when you're posting on social, it's supposed to get people more familiar with you. And if it comes off super gimmicky or salesy, you can go really wrong with using key phrases in your post really quickly. So I like to sprinkle in like location information, like we're, off 435 in Overland Park, like words that people will still find useful, but that also kind of boost your SEO. And that did remind me of what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So good job.
success.
So basically the other side of it is like creating more of like a holistic identity on the web. And part of that is social media presence. So making sure that like your address, your phone number, all of that stuff is up to date and consistent across the web, including social, so that people know how to find you. And then Google also can help better identify which profiles go with which business. And that can also boost like your organic.
One thing you said that really like jumped out to me was the authenticity, the need to be authentic with your social media. I think that's where a lot of like the people we work with struggle originally is they think they need to set up the perfect photo or the perfect video. And then if it's not perfect, you can't post it. And that's not really what social media is about. It's about brand awareness. It's about helping people realize like who you are and what you do on a regular basis. And just because you see it every day doesn't mean it's not fascinating to someone else. I think for us, we're in a really cool creative space. And even to us, sometimes it's kind of like, what a normal day. It's dogs running around. It's launching websites. It's designing God knows what, right? And so that's something that we've been pushing really hard this year is how to show what's going on behind the scenes, because it's actually really interesting when you're not in it every day. So I think that's a really, really, really good point. Another question I get a lot is, what is a social media marketing strategy?
What is a social media marketing strategy? I mean, I don't
Like, do you think that you can just post to social whenever you want?
know. Well, I mean, you could, but it's, posting is never going to be a bad thing. I mean, okay, we could talk about like content of your posting could be bad or whatever, but like in general, wanting to post is not a bad thing. And there is something to be said for like having a strategy that is no strategy. Like, we just post as we have something to post.
What happens if that's 3 times a year?
It can quickly get out of control though. Like, because yes, you could go through a week where you're like, oh, I'm really into this and I'm going to post every single day, twice a day. And then you suddenly don't post for 3 months, and that's not a good look either.
Yeah, I would agree. I think consistency is key, just like with blogging. So if you're posting, like Facebook's algorithm kind of operates the same way as Google's in a way. So the more content you put out, consistently, the more likely it is to show it to your followers and your fans, and even people that maybe just show interest in a topic that you're posting about. So if you only have the capacity to post once a week or on the first Monday of every month or every Monday, like do that really well before you start layering in more. And that's what I tell a lot of our clients is like, they're like, how many times a day should I be posting? And I'm like, once. And they're like, really? That's it? I heard 2 to 3. I heard 4 to 5 on Instagram. And I'm like, no, if you can't post every single day at least once, then you can't post 4 to 5 times a day, because then it's going to turn out you're going to post 4 times on Monday and 0 times on Tuesday. I'd rather have 2 and 2, or, 1 every day. So it kind of operates the same way as Google in that way. Like, if you want people to see your content, you should be consistent with it as much as possible.
So are you guys in agreement that everyone needs some kind of social media strategy?
Yes.
Like, you don't want to just go be posting willy-nilly. Like, you want to kind of be thinking before you post. Do you usually like plan a week in advance? Do you plan a month in advance? Is it day by day? Like, what do you guys suggest?
Social media is kind of designed to be more in the moment, but as much as you can plan in advance, the better. So we typically like to write most of our static content a month in advance. So that way we have it all approved and scheduled. But then again, we're an agency and we have kind of more of like a set of guidelines we have to go through, and we have to get approval on things from the client before we can schedule that out. But even just scheduling, I know a lot of people that they'll come up with that week's content on Sunday night and schedule it out. Like, if you're just thinking ahead and planning, then you'll know, like, if something does come up and you want to add another post or add something to your story, you kind of already have an awareness of what's already out. Mm-hmm. And then you can kind of plan around that or pivot if you need to.
Yeah.
If one Travis Kelce walks into your restaurant, you can't be like, oh, well, darn, I already had a planned post for today.
You
Can't
move that
post
shit.
about
Yeah,
that.
I mean, you could also
like
just cancel.
clear your calendar.
You just cancel the Kelsey one and post the Mahomes one, right? I think that's a really good point that you just made, Becca. I think it's a combination of things, right? Mm-hmm. You need to have the plan where like every like week or day or whatever is you have a structure. But if something cool happens, and it could be Travis Kelce walking into your restaurant, it's okay to still post, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you don't have to get it pre-approved every single time. It's kind of a cool combination of those things.
Yeah.
Life doesn't just like happen on schedule.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind. Another question we get is, what type of content should I share?
Yes.
Any and everything.
We post everything on our Instagram at @lifted_logic.
Shout out.
#plug.
Yeah.
We post everything from dogs running around,
New site launches,
awards we get,
travel dates with the great video team,
and incredible 80s outfits of Todd and Adam
in Dallas at the Sciton Summit. Shout out Sciton.
Random events.
Yeah. There's actually a matching pantsuit that goes with this amazing jacket. It's probably the best
I would pay to see it if I didn't see it.
It's the best $47 I spent in 2019. And I don't feel bad saying
bold
it.
Statement.
Yeah. Well, I'm on budget, so I know all the things.
But yeah, you could post, if you have content that you're adding to your website, there's no reason not to share it in many places, Why spend the time creating great content or having fun events or whatever it is if you're not sharing it with people?
I think the other thing too is a lot of people ask, like, what should I blog about? And I think that's kind of a similar question, just pivoting to social, because if you want to write something or want to share something with people that really are invested in you and like want to get to know you, but you don't necessarily have like a whole blog post worth of content to write about it, that's something that you can really easily share on social media. So if you want to share an article that someone mentioned you, or even just like a publication that you really like that you maybe like have used some of the research in your practice, like that's something that you could easily share and kind of give people an insight into like your day-to-day and what you really are paying attention to, and show your industry knowledge without having to like put a ton of work in.
Do you feel like a good rule of thumb is if you can't write 200 words about it, it should probably go, like, as a blog, it should probably go on social?
300.
300?
But yes.
Always trying to cut corners.
Count every single word.
Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. Another question we get a lot is, how often should I post? And I know we've kind of covered this, and I think the biggest thing you guys kind of taking away is consistency is important.
Yes.
If it's better to post once a day than 5 times one day and not the rest of the week.
Agreed.
But there is no one answer, I would say.
Right.
Like, sometimes it was absolutely relevant for me, back in New York, to post for the same account 4 times a day. because that's just what was appropriate.
Because there was content readily available that you could easily do.
Yeah, as long as you're, checking your engagement statistics and like using the tools available to you to see, how your posts are doing. I wouldn't, change any strategy of posting more than like, if you're thinking, oh, I can't post more than once a day, go ahead and post more than once a day and then give it a week, check back and see, did declines or did I see decline in likes or impressions or whatever it is, and kind of build it from there.
That is one like positive thing I think about social media is the tracking is really, really good. Whether you're on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, you can see engagement, you can see follow backs, like all that stuff is readily available and it's really user friendly. I guess another question that I get a lot is, do you need to customize content for different social platforms? So if I'm posting a link to my blog on Facebook versus LinkedIn versus Twitter versus TikTok, it's coming, guys. Do I need to change like what I'm posting about? Do I need to like change like how I'm like bringing it to like the audience? Can I like copy and paste the exact same paragraph with the link in the same image?
There are some like obvious nuances to posting to different platforms. Like obviously certain types of content just aren't going to perform as well on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, depending on what it is. Like Instagram is very visual. Facebook, people like to click links and articles. LinkedIn, people like to read your personal updates. So if it doesn't fall into one of those categories, like it just depends on like what you want to say and who you want to say it to.
Do you think it's still worth doing?
I would say like for the most part, putting out your content is like a good start. And so then from there you can kind of start catering. Like obviously you want to add hashtags to Instagram. So you can't just copy out the same post to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Google My Business,
Pinterest.
Wherever else, Pinterest, yeah. Because it's all
Super
going to
great.
look different. It functions different. So you really have to keep that in mind, like what the user is going to experience when they see that content.
Do you guys feel like kind of like the first part, like circling back to like a social media strategy, is figuring out if you can only utilize one platform, which one it should be? Because obviously business owners have limited time, they have limited budgets. It's figuring out like the type of content you're posting, what audience is the most relevant to. Like I know in Pinterest, for example, travel blogs are big, food's big, like all that kind of stuff. Obviously that's gonna be different. Fashion, that's gonna be different on LinkedIn versus Facebook. Do you think it's better than to figure out which one best fits you, or to try to spread your time evenly amongst all of them?
My suggestion would be if I can only have focus on just one, it's get on Instagram, because you can, Facebook, Instagram, same owners. You can post automatically to your other accounts from there. Facebook and Instagram go really well together as far as like how the post looks, how the comment comes across. Put in your hashtags as your first comment on Instagram so you don't have it coming through on Facebook, just a big hunk of hashtags. I would say do that or find a planner.
Do you feel like there's a trade-off on like a Facebook, Instagram, where there's more people, but there's also more attention from businesses trying to show up? Or do you think it's not oversaturated?
So you're like muddying the...
Yeah, I'm genuinely curious, right? Like
People don't follow you unless they want to see your content. So
true.
if it's organic, you're not paying to show it to someone. Like people they follow you for a reason, right? Even if it's just following back because you followed them, they want to know what you're up to. And so I feel like Courtney said, Instagram is a really good starting point because you can kind of like use that to pivot to other socials later and automate the rest of it. There are programs that you can kind of like set up automatic posting. So whenever you post a new blog post, you can put in your RSS feed and it will automatically copy out to whatever platforms you want.
Deliver's a really good one we use internally. You can publish to like 2 platforms for free. I know like internally we use eClencher a lot now for social media posting, scheduling that stuff out.
Yeah, shout out to eClencher.
You guys,
Later's good.
That's the real champion, eClencher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another question we get a lot is how much time each week should you spend doing social media marketing?
Again, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, think about what your time is worth to you. Like I said before, if you're planning on getting direct sales and things like that from Facebook, again, you may be disappointed in how much time you spend versus actually what you get out of it. I think a good rule of thumb would be maybe spend an hour on a Sunday posting, getting out your posts for the week, whether that's one a day, whether that's 3 times a week. And then you can kind of go from there and kind of start gauging what you're getting back out of it to kind of know where to manage your time.
I think that's where a lot of the planning comes in. So if you know, the more you can plan out in advance, the more efficient you can be with your time that you spend on it. So if you plan out a month's worth of content, you can schedule that in an hour or two and then be done. So it's not necessarily, it just kind of depends on how much you can plan and how much you want to be involved in the engagement of your clients on social media. And I think one other thing too that we haven't really talked about yet is like using social media for recruitment. And I think that requires, it's like almost a whole other beast, but like.
Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So basically like when people are looking for like a job, they usually check out your social media because they want to like. Yeah.
That's shocking.
Believe it or not.
2020.
They actually want to know who you are and what kind of company they'd be working for. And that's not necessarily just the values that you put on your website. It's like what you do in your day to day, and social media is a great window into that. And if you are really like trying to focus more on recruitment, like let's say in 2020, that's your big push, like you should be spending more time on social media than if you were just using it for brand awareness.
Yeah.
So
I do think one good thing you guys kind of mentioned that like I thought about while you were talking is a lot of people talk about posting, but I think that's kind of half the battle.
Yeah.
Is just as important as posting is, so is commenting back.
Yeah, that's right.
Engagement's
going with it
really
too.
important, right?
When Becca says you're done, I'm like, oh, you're never done.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a really unique way to connect with your audience, and that's I think why people love it on both sides, right? Like, you can DM someone that you would never get to meet in person, and like all of a sudden you're having a conversation with them halfway across the world, and like that's the beauty of where we're at in the world right now. And so, as important as posting is, engagement's just as important, if not more. And that might not just be for getting new clients, but you can figure out like what they're curious about, because all of a sudden you have more material for posts, you have more material for blogs. So posting is just half the battle.
And if anyone wants to check out like some really fantastic social media presences out there, Taco Bell and Wendy's Twitter is unlike any other.
Ryan Reynolds' Twitter is also amazing. That's not
He's
not
not so much a brand, is he?
He's his own brand.
But if you're not so much into the fast food, who else does it? Amnesty International does a really good job. Water.org.
Artist mentorship.
Our friends Artist Mentorship have been doing really well.
Yeah.
They've been doing great. A lot of retailers actually surprisingly have pretty good social media presences. They are really responsive to their customers, especially when they're not big names like The Gap or something like that, where maybe it's an internet startup or they started on Instagram, and so that's how they've grown their presence and grown their business.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you think about it at home, I think with social media, it's really important to understand your brand. If you're selling an awesome 80s jacket, social media is awesome. If you're a plumber, it's a different buying cycle, right? And that doesn't mean that it's not important. It just means you need to adjust how you approach it and what you expect out of it.
Exactly.
And I think that's what sometimes people forget.
Yeah.
Another question we get a lot is, it seems like people are always missing what you post on social media. If you post more, will it show up?
I don't know that it's about quantity so much as posting at the right times for your audience. And if you think about it, it does have a lot of common sense to it.
Is there a way to figure out what the best time to post is?
Yes, I think the general recommendation is between 9 and 11 a.m. But again, that's so contextual.
When people are supposed to be at work.
Exactly. When people are starting their day and just getting their head into, work and they're scrolling a little bit. But I think there could be arguments for if you are selling something or promoting something that's not so much a B2B, if you're, business to consumer type person, I would make arguments for posting around 4 or 5. And that way, when people are getting home from work and they're, kind of sitting on the couch scrolling, they're going to be more likely to see that, just because the algorithms aren't super clear, but like it does matter when you post. So, if you think about that time being posting while they're driving home, and then when they, check their feed as soon as they get home, what's going to be up at the first shot?
If you think about it, like if I Google, when should I post on social media? And the first result says to post from 9 to 11, and that's what everyone uses, like that's not going to work. So like you can't just follow like set guidelines just because you read it somewhere. Like you really need to be honing in on like what your specific audience is accustomed to like consuming content at certain times, because I know, and especially it can vary by platform too. So Facebook can be more active in the morning and Instagram can be more active at night. And you have to kind of like stay in tune with your audience in order to know when they want to consume that content.
It sounds like it kind of can be a full-time job.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Do you guys, I guess, is there a certain point where you're like, I need to outsource my social media marketing? Like, is there a tipping point where all of a sudden the value it can bring by outsourcing it and being like making sure the follow back's done, the engagement's done, the posts are consistent? Like, at what point is that better for the business to give up instead of doing it themselves?
I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's looking at if you're managing your social media yourself and it gets to a point where you're like, I can't handle this all myself, I think you start outsourcing the things that keep you busy that you don't necessarily enjoy, or just kind of that, writing the posts that need to go out every month. We have a special every Friday and we have to post about it, but that's not worth my time anymore. Mm-hmm. But I still want to be able to hop on my stories and go live if I need to from an event or something. Like, keep what's the most fun for you, and then kind of outsource the more mundane tasks, the ones that you don't enjoy as much, the ones that they're just things you need but not necessarily. I don't know where I was going with that.
That makes sense
at the end.
Yeah. If people get the sense that you don't enjoy posting on social media and sharing content, it's going to be obvious, because again, it goes back to that authenticity. Like, people want to see the real you. And if you're forcing yourself to do it, or you're, even just from a business perspective, if you're spending an hour posting to social media when you could have spent an hour in a consultation with a client, like, that's money that you've lost, in my opinion, because social media is not as important as someone in your office right now.
Yeah.
It is important for the long term, but it's just not the same.
A couple more questions that we get a lot. What one mistake should a company avoid making at all costs when it comes to social media marketing?
That's like the hugest question I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's why I'm saving it toward the end.
So huge that I said hugest.
Yeah. I got you all flustered. Social media.
I'm going to let Becca.
Becky, I like that. Alter ego.
Please
Becky.
don't.
Yeah.
I'm going to let Becca take this one first.
6 beer and Becky.
You'll have to get me there first. Then we'll see. The one mistake you need to avoid with social media is assuming that it does something that it doesn't, which is make you money. Because it can if you use it, but it's not going to be in as direct of a way as you're hoping. We see it time and time again with clients coming in, showing us their analytics, and they're getting 0, 1, 2 conversions a month.
You're saying you can't pay your power bill in Facebook likes? What?
Definitely not. I mean,
shocked.
There are rare instances. It has to be built into your industry, right? Like, I know one of my friends runs a food festival in New York, Midnight Market Events. And she grew her entire business on Instagram and Facebook. And that's how she started. And then the website came later. And for some people, that's just a natural progression because of the industry she's in. Everything is so Instagrammable. It's a very event-based company. So for them, it makes sense to keep it up and make sure that they're managing it. But at the end of the day, like, for most people, like plumbers, HVAC companies, the everyday people that have businesses that are asking these questions, they're not going to get the same return on their time or investment on social media as sometimes they think they do. So just being careful with making sure that you're monitoring all your data and actually using that to make informed decisions about your strategy, and continually just asking questions, Googling stuff, asking an expert, like coming to Lifted Logic and having a meeting about strategy. Like, all of those are good active things that you can do to make sure that you don't get a year into whatever social strategy you have and you're like, oh shit, I just lost X amount of time because I've been posting to social and it didn't make any difference at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you want to spend another hour or two babbling away with Becca and I about social media, definitely come in for a meeting.
Yeah.
We love it. I would say, kind of going off of your biggest mistake to make, is that you should be prepared to admit when you're wrong about something. The worst thing you can see is someone or an account who keeps doing the same thing over and over again, and it doesn't work for them, but they just think it should. Don't necessarily think your audience. Go off of the actual numbers, what people are saying, what your engagement looks like.
Is the best way to kind of figure out your audience is just to try a bunch of different things and see what works?
Yes.
Yep, and then track it. Track it really well.
Fall forward, right?
Yep.
At the beginning, I would keep, data on what time you posted, what day of the week you posted, how many interactions you got off that type of post. Like, start categorizing your posts. Say, for these types of posts, we see this kind of engagement and this many follows from it. From these, we see this. And then, you can kind of work from there and say what works for us. even though we think it's interesting or we think people should like it, doesn't mean they're going to.
Mm-hmm.
So just be prepared to say like, okay, we're wrong, pivot to a new strategy, because this stuff's always changing constantly. So you just never know. Be ready and be on your toes.
Yeah. I think the biggest mistakes I see is not understanding your brand and not being authentic. And Becca, we've alluded this throughout this entire video series or video, is just if you're understanding what you do and understanding why clients want to reach you, and then find a way to talk to them, because that's really what it's about. Last question we have that we get a lot is, and I guess more just general curiosity, is what is one thing you actually love about social media?
Oh, man.
I am a total millennial when it comes to my buying decisions. So as a consumer, I'm using social media to like check up on brands and make sure that they are staying accountable with the current political climate, making sure that they have an engaging culture that's like rewarding for their employees, because I don't want to call a sales rep and have them hate their jobs because they're not going to be committed to like fixing whatever issue it is with my account. And so it all just kind of comes back to that level of customer service and like getting to know a brand that you can't really get anywhere else. And so when I can follow along, and of course I'm also interested because I'm in the industry and I want to see what people are doing and what kind of strategies they're using to like come up with new campaigns. And I think it's just really fun. And I would encourage like business owners too to just follow brands that they might like shop at in person but don't necessarily follow yet. Like see what they're doing online, because chances are like they're doing something right. So that's like the main way that I use it. And I really like discovering new like startups or nonprofits or just things that I can like follow along with and feel connected to the world. So
I would say my favorite thing is like it puts these businesses like at your fingertips. Like, for example, one 4th of July, I was drinking a Boulevard Wheat.
Shout out Casey's own.
Sorry. I was drinking a Boulevard Wheat, and the minute I tasted it, I was like, this is not a Boulevard Wheat. This is a pale ale. And it had the label and everything on it, though. So I took a picture, and I posted it on Twitter, and I was like, just like that moment when you realize your Boulevard Wheat is actually pale ale. And 10 minutes later, I get a response from Boulevard being like, oh my gosh, we can't believe this happened. Like, DM us right now. And so I DM'd them and I got like a free case of wheat, which was awesome. Like,
yeah, I think that's we talk about this all the time internally, is social media is a really cool way to engage with your audience, and you have to want to, but it's a really cool path that if you choose to use it, that you can use in so many other powerful ways. I think that's the thing that I think about most is just how it has allowed brands and people and coworkers and all that stuff to just be connected on a whole nother level that they couldn't have been 10 years ago.
Exactly. That's all that existed, was you either had someone come to you in person and complain or give you a raving, recommendation, or someone would leave a Google review. And both of those things take a lot of like action and preparation on the part of the consumer. And so a lot of times they just don't do it either way if they have like one of those strong feelings. And so with social media, you get all the in between of like people love you, people are like,
General questions.
Like, yeah.
As a millennial, I would never pick up the phone and call Boulevard and be like, yo.
Right. Yeah. So it's just like a whole new
viewers
spectrum of like engagement that you didn't have before.
Yeah. I may a time or two tweet at airlines when the flights are delayed for no reasons.
Do that every time.
Yeah. Pro tip: if your flight is delayed or something happens with your flight,
tweet them.
Tweet your airline. They usually take care of you.
Yeah.
Is there any closing thoughts you guys have?
Oh my goodness.
People have a lot of random questions about social media that like aren't necessarily covered in these general like overview questions. So if you ever have any questions about social, like we love talking about it and we would love to like share our experience. So
maybe just hashtag AskLL.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have like thoughts for days about Instagram stories alone.
Yeah.
And like how you can use them and why you should use them and when you should use them.
Sounds like a future AskLL.
I think that's another topic.
It is.
Sure.
Yeah.
For
Let us know if you'd want to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that does it for us today. Once again, if you guys have any questions about anything digital, anything business, just ask LL, hashtag AskLL, and we'll get to them as quick as we can. And remember, there are no stupid questions, especially in the digital space. Feel free to hashtag AskLL on social media, and we'll get to them as quickly as we can. But keep in mind, there are no stupid questions, especially in the digital space.